Pablo, thank you so much for joining in for this discussion. We're going to talk about us, what we do together, and of course, what's the benefit of the whole industry with going cloud.
Well, pleasure to be here, Monika, today. So Pablo, I happen to lead and have actually two roles within AWS. From a UK perspective, I lead our UK banking and payments for financial services, and then I have a wider remit for our business development go-to-market across Europe, Middle East, and Africa for payments. Right. As a result of that, I tend to spend most of my time with customers like yourselves, listening and hearing kind of the challenges of the industry in the payments, financial services, and trying to identify the problems so that we can solve them for you or with the help of some of our partners, as you guys are a partner today, right?
Yeah, and I remember when we launched back in 2016, and we had a couple of like strategic partners. And AWS has definitely been one of the biggest ones and still continue to be. And I always said that it's easy to work when you are on the shoulder of giants. But I think what makes it easy is that we share so much. Like you have this, what you call the day one mentality, etc. And of course, I am so much smaller, but I admire that and we strive to keep that as we grow. So if we look at the financial industry, and I think it's not rocket science, but it's complex. It's people's money, it's people's data, and it's, in order for it to work, the sequences has to, like things has to function in a certain order. So of course you see a lot in the position you are today, but also taking back on the positions you were. Like if you look at Europe and UK being included this time into that, what do you see? What's happening currently? What are trends? What's actually going on? Because of course banks often are pretty, let's say, problematic.
So there's probably, we can say two things, right? From a pure cloud adoption, which I guess has been one of the main barriers, and I think you guys were breaking through in that space in the cards industry. I can see kind of few things happening, right? Which is kind of the vectors driving the industry, which I think you guys are probably well positioned as part of our partner ecosystem, right? I think by the end of this year, from IDC report, there will be about $189 billion spent in IT clouds, which is kind of a phenomenal investment. The expectation is that investment continues to grow for the next year at I think it was 22%, which I mean, it's telling you that there is investment in cloud and there are movements. One of the other big hurdles that was obviously regulation, which I'm sure you guys went through when you started, right? With all the PCI DSS compliance. But the regulators are open to the cloud, right? And obviously the UK was one of the first ones, European Union followed. But there are more countries following on the back, right? I think it was last year, 2022, Israel allowed basically using cloud computing for critical workloads, which again is another indicator that is telling us this is moving, right? So I think when it comes to the actual incumbents that are yet operating on-prem, they see now this as an opportunity. And the ones that are left behind, I think are going to struggle because this is where the market is going. This is where incumbents are going to have to kind of change the path, adopt clouds, and leverage the benefits it brings, right? Because it's no longer kind of something that was said 5-6 years ago. It's a reality, and it has been demonstrated by companies and partners like yourselves, right? Which is important, right? That's I think a shifting kind of mechanism that is happening. The other one that I see from the conversations I'm having with multiple customers in different geographies, and obviously Europe is Europe, including UK, but you go to every country and then dynamics, sales motions, adoptions are slightly different, right? It's just not the same processing cards, payments in the cloud in the Nordics as in the south of Europe. Challenges, kind of needs, market adoption is different, right? But the reality is that what I see more and more, and there are exceptions because I've seen those exceptions, I've discussed with customers, this tendency of build versus buy is a reality. And I think that's where partners like yourselves, Enfuce, are going to play an important role. Why? Because tier 1 institutions, tier 2 institutions are starting to pick up best of breed in the value chain within payments, right?
And I think that is, of course, for me, that's awesome to hear, because as we are born to service the banks, like as an old banker, but then realize that they aren't ready. Back in 2016, they weren't ready. But if you think about like what's happening currently is that the mindset is starting to change because the need for change and the benefits are becoming so evident that even the big ones cannot afford not to do things. So again, cloud as a concept of just, because I remember when I was a bank CIO back in 2009, and I think AWS was born in 2006 or something. Yeah. And of course we were like, yeah, okay, I'm a bank CIO in a one country. I would never need cloud. That's where I was in 2009. Fast forward 7 years, and I'm like, yeah, shit, we need to go cloud because I want to be better, I want to be faster, and I want to be globally scalable. And I want to work with people who know what they're doing, like being the best. And I think that's why it's been so great working with AWS, because the collaboration we have also on the architecture side, because in the end you can like cloud, it's just ones and zeros and it's architecture and it's like, but in the end it's risk management, it's much more secure when you architect it correctly, and of course you pay for what you use. And I really remember back in my old days when my business people at the bank came crying like, this is our list of all the new stuff, feature functionalities we want to build to our customers. And I was like, yeah, scrap it, not gonna do it. I have a budget, this is what I'm gonna do, because I had to every day pay for the peak. And when I could kill that, when I could actually in cloud go, and not just thinking about all the benefits of scaling business, like multiple regions and having the disaster recovery on a level that like is unprecedented, because you couldn't pay that much money to get what you have. Just like taking that, I could see that I was on average paying 85-90% for nothing every day. And at the same time, I had a horrible problem with having the right type of knowledge in-house, because who wants to do it for one? And then I think the worst, like the time to market was horrendous. And I think those are the things, like having lived that life and going with Enfuce were like better, faster, and globally scalable. Because I remember in the bank, I needed to get one test environment up so I could do some change management testing. And then it was like, okay, €500,000 because I needed to order IBM hardware. It would take 3 months to get it. Then it would be 2 months to get people to actually implement the test. And today, I can have that in seconds, and production environments and the whole architecture. So I think as a former CIO, I really urge the more incumbent player CIOs to really nail the business benefits. It's better, faster, and scalable.
No, and that's really appreciate to hear from you, right? Coming from a bank, from an incumbent, from the industry, and having experienced that yourself, right? Because the reality is that the benefits are there, seen and tested by yourselves. And I think it becomes even more visible these days with all the, and excuse me saying that, but maybe there's a little bit of hype with the Gen AI thing. But the reality is that democratizing the access to provide ability to companies like yourself, that you don't have the check, you don't have the balance sheet, to be able to afford that by yourself is something that probably was unthinkable 6 years, 7 years ago. And that's what we do, basically. As AWS, we help kind of companies like yourselves, startups, fintechs as well, to just be able to compete in a global world.
Yeah, if you don't think about the money waste that used to happen, but then you think about just the energy waste, the heating, the cooling, and just the need for energy and computational power, adding AI also as a tool to leverage for good. I think in those positions, again, cloud, it's a little bit like internet. Like when internet came, it changed the game. Cloud came in as a massive toolbox to accelerate that change.
Yeah.
And now we're inserting AI. And if we look at what AI is doing and how it's evolving, I have to say that I am much more hopeful and excited about the future because of AI and cloud, because it actually does even more than democratization. So if you think about what are the challenges that really upbring problems in the world, it is inequality. And inequality comes from not having the same opportunities, and as such, you then focus your time and energy on what you couldn't do. And then you look at also all the great stuff that AWS does in general to harness good. But I do think that it's, again, cloud, AI, they are a massive potential for good. But of course, it is a tool. So tools do good when used the right way.
Agree. And that's what we're trying to solve, right? And help kind of not only kind of companies and partners and customers, but also kind of addressing some of the challenges with the environment, right? And that's something that we are investing heavily. Like, I think Amazon is the largest purchase buyer of renewable energy in the world, which is kind of a testimony of where our mindset is and our compromise, which aligns to yours as well, right? Because you guys are fully aligned with net zero emissions and what you're looking for there, which is, again, aligning kind of values and targets from a ESG perspective, which I think is what we need to do, right? As responsible kind of companies and individuals at the end of the day. It's the challenges. The benefits are there, and definitely Enfuce is helping and disrupting in the industry by leveraging the cloud, by expanding in different geographies because of the benefits it's bringing, right? And I guess it's going to be interesting in the coming years how, in this case, the new technologies that are going to be made available to yourselves, like Gen AI, ML, in a more consumable way, in a managed service way, are going to be helping transform the cars industry. Because I think there is still a lot to transform in the industry. There is still pieces of the kind of cars value chains that were on-prem that are coming to cloud now. We think about HSM boxes, right? I mean, I think you have been probably in the same key ceremonies that I've been, right? Yes. Well, I mean, we have solved that now, right? You can deal with that in the cloud.
And we have wanted that to be solved already in 2016.
That's it. We cannot solve everything in one go.
A lot of money and time and heartache.
But that's something the industry has been requesting us. Okay, how do we solve it? How do we make it PCI compliance available, right? The other probably biggest hurdle that we have discussed in the past is connecting to the cars network, right?
That's also been dealt with.
It's now being dealt through the cloud, right? Which again, for yourselves, is going to allow you to expand your outreach.
So everything, all the tools we need are there. It's like, how do we use them in the correct way? But if we think about the incumbents, and I don't think incumbency is a bad word, but if you would think that I am what I used to be, an incumbent bank CIO, what would be the top 3 advice or things that you would tell me to kind of look at, understand?
The main one, which probably summarizes some of the bits, is cloud is no longer about why.
Yes.
It's how fast you implement. You're gonna have to implement it now and leverage it now, because if not, you're gonna be left outside. You're gonna be probably, as some of the kind of research analyst house put it, you're gonna be only able to tackle kind of low income kind of countries, regions, markets, right? The change is there, and the startups have demonstrated that that's possible. I mean, one of the conversations I have actually around these days is also payments on the cloud, cards on the cloud. Is that processing possible? And you guys are running on us, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys are challenged whenever you go to offer your services to customers. Oh, is this gonna fall? Is this cards? Is payments? This is tricky. Obviously, and we in the UK have suffered that because we have had a couple of meltdowns, 2012 and 2019. Yes, 2018. We have seen the impact of not being able to process payments, right? So obviously, there is a concern there. But the reality, when you look at cloud, is like, I think it was this week, NASDAQ put its third derivatives market into AWS running. That's 12 million message a day.
Yes.
That's NASDAQ, right?
Yeah.
Compare that to payments in the UK. Last year, based on the UK finance report, 45.7 million billion transactions in the UK payments. Just compare that, right? I mean, the cloud can address those volumes without any problem. So it's one of the bits that would be interesting to see how the market evolves, because those are questions and concerns that in some respect are here and there, but you guys process in the cloud. There are other big, and you guys focus on cards solely, but there are other companies that run in on AWS that focus on payments, well-known names out there. No issues, right? So I think back to the specific question is, the main one again, you just need to adopt. It has been tested, accepted by the regulator.
There are no excuses. So I mean, like, the time for excuses has passed. If you don't want to be left behind painfully, you need to go cloud. But I think on the positive sides, it is more secure than any type of on-prem architecture, because you don't have that much money to build it so secure that it will also withstand any type of, let's say, natural disaster, terrorist attacks or anything. But if I look at my infrastructure, it is built for high availability, and it's built on robustness and really also the data segregation and all of those things that are really important, where we talk about people's money and people's data. And then also, as an added benefit, it's cheaper and it's better for the environment. So I mean, like, if you're an incumbent banker, go cloud. Thank you so much for joining, Pablo.
Thank you so much for having me, Monika. It's been a pleasure to see you again in London.
Yes, thank you.
Good to see you.